Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Jeff with Fluent American checking in. And as you can see, we're going to be taking a look at a Task 1 prompt. Now, I have not seen this Task 1 before. Try to keep it somewhat authentic experience. So I've not really looked much at the chart. So we'll be going through this, trying to finish in about 20 minutes or so. As I write it, I'll be trying to provide some tips and suggestions. And of course, if you have questions for me as we take a look at this prompt, feel free to put them in the chat box. I will be checking that as I go through this and trying to respond to them as best I can. You can also, of course, follow along with me in the actual documents. I will post the link. Give me one second. Okay, so if you want to follow along with me there in the document, in case you can't see it or for whatever reason, feel free to join me actually in the document itself. But again, this is going to be a task 1. Taken from IELTSexam.net. All right, so we have the percentage of Canadian donors by age groups, 2 years, 2000, 2015. And one of my first suggestions, when you have a task 1, is you want to decide how are you actually going to organize your paragraphs. That's obviously the most important part of your letter or of your chart for the academic. So if I see 2 specific years, then I'm already kind of imagining I'm probably just going to do one paragraph's going to talk about the year 2000, one paragraph's going to talk about the year 2015, and then I'm probably going to start with my overview. And as I've stated before, you don't need to restate the question. I have videos to talk about it. I have lots of things to talk about that, so that is not necessary to do. All right, so let's take a look then. Let's start off with our overview. And we start with, so for instance, like overall. And what are some of the things that we see? So we can see that for the year 2000, the percentage of donors was highest among 35 to 49-year-olds and lowest among 18 to 24-year-olds. Okay, and then also I see that in 2015, it was actually highest in the 50 to 64 group, but also smallest in the 18 to 24 group. Okay, so that's something that if I'm just trying to identify general trends, that's what the goal of the overview is. You're just trying to identify some general trends for the full chart. It looks like 18 to 24 was smaller for both, and whereas 35 to 49 was only higher for 2000. Another thing that I also noticed is that all of the younger years, so pretty much like 18 to 34, so our first 2 categories for both years are smaller. So that's probably what I'm going to use because it's a little bit more general. Okay, but again, there's lots of possible overviews. There's more than one possible answer. You're just trying to identify general trends. So overall, whether for 2000 or 2015, the younger generations were less likely to donate in Canada, or among Canadians maybe. We're less likely to donate among Canadians. Let me zoom out just slightly. And again, if this is a little bit too small, feel free to join me in the document so you can see it too. Okay, but overall, whether for 2000 or 2015, the younger generations were less likely to donate among Canadians. With the trend changing once people reached 35 years old. Great. Okay, so this would be my overview. And I think this will be fine for covering it. The overview, the max length for your overview statement, you want to be about 1 to 2 sentences. You don't want it to be super long. Okay, keep it relatively short. Next, let's take a look at the year 2000. It's like starting in the year 2000. It's like 18 to 24-year-olds donated or maybe like had the lowest percentage of donors at, was it 20%? At 20%. Okay, and then we can see that pretty much this keeps going up and up and up until 35 to 49. Had the lowest percentage of donors at 20%. Those slightly older, from 25 to 34, also had maybe like comparatively lower percentages with only, or maybe like with less than 3 out of 10. If I'm using numbers or letters, let's keep it consistent with less than 3 out of 10 actually donating. Or maybe I can even say like just less than 3 out of 10, because you can see it's just below 30%, so it's like 28% maybe. So I could say like just less than 3 out of 10 actually donating. However, like the demographics of donors. So again, this 35 to 49 group, this is our largest group, okay? Who were only a year to 15, only a year to 15 years older, donated however, those who are only a year to 15 years older had a 10% higher percentage. However, those who were only a year to 15 years older had the 10% higher percentage. As nearly 40%, as nearly 40% of those aged 35 to 49 participated. From this peak, the numbers decreased, with 50 to 64-year-olds almost reaching 35%, and all older demographics hovering just above 30%. Or if I want to keep saying percent, just to mix up my word choice a little bit, let's mix that up a little bit. So from this peak, the numbers decrease, with 50 to 64-year-olds reaching almost reaching 35%, and all older demographics hovering about 3 to 4 percentage points lower. Okay? So that's my paragraph for the year 2000. And again, if anyone has any questions about anything in that paragraph, be sure to let me know. But that's something I'll write. I'll check it again to see if there's anything I want to change at the end. But for now, that's what I'm going to have. Let's take a look at our next one. Okay. So now we need to write about 2015. The numbers in 2015 like in general, maybe like lag behind the performance in 2000. 18 to 24-year-olds only had a rate of 10. It's not quite 10, maybe it's like 11 or 12. Rate of roughly 11%. Well, that number grew to, well, that number grew by, so again, 11%, 25%, so it grew by about 14%. Like, well, that number grew by 14 percentage points for the 25 to 34-year-olds. It still trailed the numbers from 2000. Similarly, more 35 to 49-year-olds donated. In 2015, but at less than 35%. The 2000 numbers were still notably higher. Similarly, more 35 to 49-year-olds did in 2015, but less than 35%. The 2000 numbers were still notably higher. Cool. The 50 to 64-year-olds, however, showed up in greater numbers, outpacing the 2000 donors by, so at 2000 it was again like 34% ish. And in 2015 we got about what, like 37. So it's like what, like 34 versus like 37%. About outpacing 2,000 donors by about 3%. And then we get our last group. This lead continued for the older or maybe instead of older, for the oldest. I mean, there's no other group that's older than these 65 and over people, right? So I can say the oldest. This lead continued for the oldest participants in the year 2015 with nearly 35% of them. Maybe instead of donating, I could say like contributing. Okay, because I don't really know what they're, I don't see a prompt, so I'm not sure what exactly they're donating. I don't know if they're donating blood or furniture or money. I have no idea. Okay. All right. So this is just personally what I have for our time. I'm going to take a look just to make sure there's nothing else I want to adjust. I want to make sure that we are answering the question. You know, when you're doing your task ones, these are all steps that I encourage you to, that you try to do as well. You know, read through what you wrote. Make sure you're saying what you want to say. Make sure you're answering the question. And also make sure, of course, for these task ones that every single key feature gets mentioned. I can't tell you how often I help students and they're missing some data. Something's missing, like whether it's 1 year is missing or one specific age group or one price or whatever the whatever the topic's talking about, something's missing. And if one thing is missing, then you are probably going to get a 5 for your task achievement, because it's pretty clear that, in order to get a 6 or higher, every single feature that they call needs to be included. Let's just check the word count really quick on this. Probably going to be a little higher for me. So again, this is for me 221. So do words here. I'll try to cut this down. So like, for instance, if it's hard for you to write that many words for the time frame, I'll try to do a shortened version of this that maybe would be more realistic for you. But I'll call this, for instance, my full version, and then we'll try to do a briefer, a shorter version as well, for people that have a harder word count. So a shorter version in a moment. But before I get to that, let's just make sure we're including everything. Okay, so we start with our overview. So overall, whether 2000 or 2015, younger generation is less likely to donate among Canadians, with trend changing once people reach 35 years old. Maybe instead of less likely to donate, maybe like no, I think that's fine. It's whatever. That's fine. Starting in the year 2018 and 24 is the lowest percentage of donors at 20%. Okay, that's the lowest percent. I'll probably just set for that year, because actually the lowest numbers were those 18 24-year-olds from 2015. Just to make it a little bit more specific, those slightly older from 25 to 34 also had a comparatively lower percentage, with just less than 3 out of 10 actually donating. Okay, that's fine. However, those who are only a year to 15 years older at 10% higher percentage, as only 4% of those aged 34 to 49 participate. Okay. This part we can probably take off or modify to shorten, just to kill some words. From this peak, the numbers decreased. Again, this is also just kind of fluff. You don't really need this information. 50 to 64-year-olds almost reaching 35%. True. Okay, and all the demographics hovering around 3 to 4 percentage points lower. Okay, so I think that we're including everything we need there. For a second one, 2015, lag behind performance in 2000. Again, this isn't really information you need. Okay, it's nice to have, but it's not necessary. 18 to 24 was only at a rate of 11%. Okay, the number grew by 14 percentage points. 11% to 25%. Cool. And still trailed numbers from 2000. Again, we don't really need that. Some more to the 35 to 49-year-olds, less than 35%. Still no be higher. Again, like a lot of these comparisons with the year 2000 are not necessary. They're nice to have, but not necessary. Okay, so if you're worried about your word count, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't write this much in 20 minutes. Jeff, what are you doing? That's how you can save some time. Take out some of those parts. The 50 to 64-year-olds, however, showed up in great numbers, outpacing the 2000 donors by about 3%. This lead continued for the oldest participants in year 2015, nearly 30% of them contributing. Okay, so I think we're including everything that we need to include here. Let's again take this and try to shorten it. While I do this, also just some quick reminders. If you're trying to get your own tasks corrected and things like that, definitely take a look at our editing features and things like that on our website. You can submit documents to me offline, and I take a look at them and send them back to you, usually about 2 to 3 business days. Okay, so you can just go here, click on our IELTS tab. You can see here I have some guided practice videos that are going into a little bit more detail than some of our YouTube videos do, about things like how you write hooks, how do you start task 2s, that's the tricky thing, how do you write a strong conclusion, how do you actually write a thesis statement, how do you prepare your task 2s to actually start getting a band 7 or higher. So that's what these videos are about, so I definitely encourage you to check those out. And again, you can submit tasks. Right now it's $6 for a task, or you can send me 3 tasks and I'll take a look at all of them for $15. So if you're looking for some IELTS corrections for your own writing, this is definitely your opportunity from me. All right, so let's make a shorter version of this. Doop, doop. Okay. Once you've reached, okay, starting in year 2000. Instead of starting in year 2000, we could just say in 2000, 18 to 24-year-olds had lowest percentage of doings at at 20%. We don't need the 40 a year, just slightly older. Those age 25 to 34 also I compare to lower percentages. Great. So we can shorten that a little bit. We don't really need the just with less than 3 out of 10 actually donating. Don't actually need to actually. You know, adverbs and things like that. If you're looking for words to cut, start off with adverbs. Adverbs don't really mean a whole lot. Those are definite words that you can consider removing, although they can help a little bit with style and things like that. Okay, so understand that where we're removing this, I'm trying to make sure that the score will be good, though I can't guarantee that, you know, it won't affect your vocab score a little bit. You know, these words do give you an opportunity to kind of demonstrate more what you can do with the language. So if you can keep them, it is helpful. Those who are only a year to 15 years. Those who are only a year to 15 years older, 10% higher percentage. Okay, those who are only a year to 15 years older had 10% higher percentage. From this peak, the numbers decreased. It's reaching, the numbers decreased. Again, you could potentially cut off this part here. 64-year-olds almost reached. And you could take off the 3 to 4. You could just say about 3 percentage points lower. Numbers in 2015. Just say instead of all this, we could just say like 15 years later. How many 18 and 24-year-olds only at a rate of roughly 11%, while that number grew by 14. Oh, I said strailed. Ooh, that's not good. Let's adjust that. Where was that? Well, that number grew. Take off that S. Trailed. It's not a word. Okay, still trailed the numbers from 2000. And of course, always check your spelling, especially if it's words that are like in the prompts. You know, for instance, if it says donors and you spell donors like an A, like you say D-A-N, you know, that's really going to hurt your score. Examiners do not like it when you misspell words that are actually in the question. There's really no excuse for that. Anyways, 15 years later, 24-year-olds only had a rate of roughly 11%, while the number grew by 14 percentage points. It still trailed the numbers from 2000. Again, you don't really need that comparison. That number grew by 14 percentage points for the 25 to 34-year-olds. Okay. You could also say the next oldest demographic. Similarly, more 35 to 49-year-olds donated in 2015, but less than 35%. But we're less than 35%. Okay, 50 to 64-year-olds, however, showed up in greater numbers, outpacing 2,000 donors by about 3%. And again, for the oldest participants in the year 2015, nearly 35% of them contributed. Okay, let's check our word count for this. For those who are interested in the shorter version. And again, our original, I think, was what, like 220? See how many words we were able to shave off. This is 163. So we shaved off about 60 words, more or less. And I think this is a more, for some people, maybe this is a more realistic number to go for. Okay. All right, so you got two versions of this, a full version and a shorter version. Questions, comments, be sure to let me know. As always, like I said before, if you're trying to get your own IELTS writing corrected by someone who is a former examiner, me, feel free to take a look at our website and submit some essays and things like that, or talk to me about classes and things. Besides that, I do have to run to a class, but I really thank you guys for your time. If there is a specific question or prompt or other comment that you have in the future that you'd like some clarification on, be sure to let me know in the comments, and I will do my best to respond as soon as possible. Thank you guys so much. I will see you in a future video. Have a good day, have a good night, have a good afternoon. Take care.